What is up, guys? Rick Hackus here, and today we're going to be going over my top 5 Dark Zone tips for the Division. These are all techniques that I personally use to have a better time in the Dark Zone, to increase my survivability, to get more loot, and to just overall have a better Dark Zone experience, and that's why I'm sharing them with you guys today. Now, these aren't necessarily ranked in a specific order, however, I would say that tip number 1 is quite important, so I would definitely stick around for that one. So let's get started off here with tip number 5. Now, this tip is simply to increase your character's scavenger stat. Now, if I go into my character menu and look at his attributes and I scroll all the way down, it's going to show my scavenger stat. And you can see that when I go over this stat, it says that the higher scavenging you have, the better chance you have to find better loot. And obviously, since going into the Dark Zone, one of the main objectives for most players is to find high-end gear, you definitely want to invest in this scavenger stat. Now, although we don't have any specific numbers, for example, increasing your scavenger percent by 50% is going to yield, 20% better high-end drops. We don't have any numbers that specific. Most people do find that when they increase their scavenger stat by a dramatic amount, they also find that their loot drops, specifically the amount of high-end gear they get in the Dark Zone, does increase as well. So how do you increase your scavenger stat? Well, you do that through armor, and you'll see that my knee pads actually have plus 71 to my scavenger stat. So that's where you're going to really want to be paying attention to. Try to get armor that has those boosts to scavenger. And remember that some performance mods actually do also come with a scavenger increase. I have one myself. So be on the lookout for armor that increases your scavenger and performance mods as well. You want to get your scavenger as high as possible to get the best chance for that good gear to drop. Now, speaking of changing your gear around, this is going to go right into tip number 4, which is don't focus entirely on your primary DPS for your character. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because I see so many people going on about how amazing their primary DPS is. And the simple fact of the matter is that you're going to do a lot for your character's survivability and just having a better time in the Division's Dark Zone if you don't solely focus on your primary DPS. Don't solely look for stuff that increases your firearms rating for your character. Look for stuff that increases your skill power and increases your stamina and therefore health as well. Now, I also say this because of personal experience. One of my squad members that I play with all the time is constantly going on about how amazing his primary DPS was. He was saying, wow, I've gotten, my MP7 up to 120,000 DPS, which was absurd, and that was more than what I was doing at the time. Turns out he was sacrificing everything to get this stat, and eventually, after redoing his character, he went from only 30,000 health to 60,000 health, and he said to me that it changed everything. Although he did give up a good portion of his primary DPS, which he was very proud of having originally, he said that it was just an entirely different experience in the Dark Zone. He was dying so much less, and it just helped him out a ton. So I'm just trying to give this advice and using his mistake to help you guys. And even if those of you watching this video already know this, I'm sure you guys have that one friend who just always dumps everything into primary DPS. Well, tell him to knock it off. Alright, so let's move on to tip number 3. And tip number 3 is simply use 2 different primary weapons when you're running the Dark Zone. Now, what do I mean by primary weapons? Well, I mean weapons like light machine guns, submachine guns, and assault rifles. For me, what I run in the Dark Zone is I have a basically god roll RPK light machine gun. I run that, and I also have a really good roll on my amazing Vector 45 ACP submachine gun. So I run light machine gun, submachine gun, but again, you could substitute one of those for an assault rifle, and I would kind of recommend against running shotgun or marksman's rifle. Now hold on, because I know some people are scrolling down to the comment section right now to tell me that I'm completely wrong and that they have an amazing shotgun, and only if I knew how good their shotgun or marksman's rifle are. Well, those of you doing that, you're not necessarily wrong, because here's why I'm suggesting to do this. The reason is simply because of ammo concerns. Now, personally, I have a high-end vest for my character that has a bonus of 47% extra spare ammunition. So I have a substantial ammunition bonus, and I'm still really concerned about running out of ammo in the dark zone. When you're in the dark zone, or at least when I am in the dark zone, my main focus is just farming bosses. Because I'm at level 30, I'm at that max level cap, so I'm looking for loot. I'm just farming bosses for those high-end drops. And as such, I want to spend most of my time killing bosses. Taking time to go to a safe house or a checkpoint every few minutes to have to restock is a colossal waste of time. And additionally, diverting from your path to go and get ammo in a checkpoint or in a safe house runs the risk of coming back to find that your farming run is now being taken up by another squad, and suddenly you're out of luck. You have to go and travel the map until you find more bosses. This is a huge downside. Now, to avoid this, again, I run two primary weapons, and the reason being is because if I'm using my Vector, I can use just that gun in pretty much every scenario, in every encounter by itself. And then when that runs out of ammo, I can switch to my RPK. Again, just rely on that for pretty much every encounter. Now, when that runs out of ammo, I will have hopefully collected enough ammo off the people I've killed to refill my Vector, and then I just go back and forth, and that's going to prolong the time I need to go to a safe house or a checkpoint to refill my ammunition for as long as possible. Now, the reason I'm suggesting maybe a lot of you don't use stuff like marksman's rifle and shotguns is simply because those guns really are only good in a few different scenarios. You can't do this technique with those guns, because if you run out of SMG ammo and then you switch to a shotgun is not good in all scenarios. It's good in a very few specific scenarios, but you can't just be running every single engagement with a shotgun. And the same obviously goes for marksman rifles. Now, very importantly, I want to say that although I think that's solid advice and my reasoning is sound, I'm not going to be correct in every different scenario. If you're watching this video and you have a god roll on a shotgun or on a marksman's rifle, by all means use that instead. But I think for the majority of people who just kind of have average loot all around, this advice is still solid. Using an average assault rifle is going to have a lot more usability and can utilize this technique of switching from one primary to another, for example, average SMG, than if you have an average shotgun or an average marksman's rifle in the mix. Now, moving on, tip number 2 is simply don't go rogue. Now, the reason for this is that there simply isn't enough reward involved for the substantial risk that comes with going rogue on purpose in the dark zone. And in fact, one of the main topics of discussion on the Division subreddit is basically talking about how to make going rogue easier, because right now, so many players feel that it's simply not worth it, and I'm one of those players as well. If your squad purposely kills another agent in the dark zone, every other player in that dark zone is going to be notified that you went rogue, at which point you're going to have to survive for 90 seconds. And that 90 seconds is probably going to be extended because any players who get in your way and try to kill you and you kill them, your rogue timer is going to go up even further. So enjoy having several minutes on the run. Oh, and by the way, while you're on the run, every time you shoot your gun, you're going to appear again on the radar so everyone is updated with your position. Even if you don't shoot your gun, you're still going to be pinged on the map and people can track you down with extreme ease. Now, of course, the reward for doing all of this, hypothetically, is that you kill a player, guess what, he drops 3 high-end items, and you take those high-end items, you survive the rogue timer, and you get them for yourself. But this is extremely unlikely. Heck, it's unlikely to even get a high-end item, let alone know someone else has one, kill them, take it, and survive all the way with a rogue timer until you extract. That's most likely not going to happen. What's most likely going to happen is that you're going to go rogue, everyone's going to track you down, and 6 players are going to converge on your 2-man squad or 3-man squad and absolutely destroy you. And also just think of time as a resource as well. Think about all the time you're going to spend while rogue on the run, your timer going up, trying to survive. You're going to spend, again, upwards of, 4 or 5 minutes trying to survive a rogue timer sometimes, whereas that time is probably much better spent just farming the bosses for yourself. Now, some players are gonna be good or lucky enough to survive the onslaught that happens when your squad goes rogue, but the vast majority of people are simply better off being peaceful in the Dark Zone. Now, being peaceful leads right into my number 1 Dark Zone tip, which is simply use game chat. And the simple reason being is because when you're in game chat in the Division, it is automatically programmed into every other player's settings that they will have proximity chat turned on, which means that as long as you're talking in game chat, any other player, even if they're in a party, will be able to hear you talking through their TV. Now, why is this useful? Well, let's go over a scenario that happened to me last night. Now, what happened was that my squad of 3 was simply killing a boss in the Dark Zone, and there was another squad of 3 kind of nearby. They were just kind of doing their own thing. They had been near us for a while, and they weren't posing us any threat. Now, we were both working together. Both squads had done some damage to this boss, so loot was going to drop for everyone. Everything was fine. This time, the loot dropped from the boss, and I saw a glorious orange pillar ascending to the sky. I had gotten a high-end item. Now, it turns out it was just a high-end performance mod, which basically is all the high-ends I get right now. But in any event, I went, picked it up, and a lot of us went over and looted the boss's corpse, but there was still a few enemies floating around nearby. Suddenly, after picking up this high-end gear piece, the entire enemy squad went rogue. Just a bunch of red appeared in front of me, and it was 3 players with a 20-second timer above them. Now, I think a lot of you can sympathize with this scenario. You just pick up a high-end gear piece and suddenly you're facing down a rogue squad. What do you do? Now, at that point, tensions flared, everyone ducked behind cover, and basically a giant firefight was just about to happen. But I realized it just didn't need to. We've all accidentally gone rogue in the Dark Zone before. You're shooting an enemy and another non-hostile agent walks right in front of your bullet. Suddenly, your squad is rogue. We've all been there. And the way this other squad was acting before, and the way that we all were kind of surprised that this happened and none of my squad members had taken any substantial damage, I reasoned that it was probably just a rogue grenade or someone again walked in front of someone's bullets. So I went out of cover and walked in front of them and said, "Hey guys, it's cool, we know it was an accident, everyone chill." Again, we know it was an accident. Guess what? They didn't attack our squad. They kind of stood up. They realized we weren't going to attack them. They weren't going to attack us. And it was resolved. And I was able to extract my high-end gear piece. And in fact, that squad helped us extract. Helped us fight some enemies that spawned near the extraction zone. So everything worked out. And I'm telling you guys, it would not have worked out like that if I wasn't in game chat. If I wasn't able to communicate to the other squad that we know it was a mistake, that we're all cool here, that everything's cool, there definitely would have been a firefight. There just would have been. Some of my squad members had already started to shoot some pot shots at them. They had started to kind of, think about shooting back. And again, it was because I said, hey, everyone chill, no one's meaning anyone any harm, that we're able to extract from that scenario. And that has happened to me. That is one example that happened last last night, but that same thing has happened to me dozens of times, both in the betas and in the full game. Again, going rogue by accident is a common thing, but when you do go rogue and another squad is nearby, you're basically gonna assume that they're gonna be dicks about it and try to attack you. There's no downside for them to try to attack a player who's just gone rogue, even if it's an accident. So by going out and saying, hey, we know it's an accident, don't kill us, again, that's happened to me where I've accidentally gone rogue, there's players nearby, tensions get high, but we're able to say to them, hey, it was an accident, we're cool, don't attack us, and 99% of the time, they relax and there isn't a firefight. And again, that's something that I believe only happens because they're able to hear me through game chat. Now, however, I will say a word to the wise. When you're in game chat in the Dark Zone, you can't just be exclaiming anything. Shouting from the rooftops that you've gotten a high-end weapon isn't maybe the best idea in the Dark Zone because there are still some assholes that play this game. However, again, from personal experience, the ability to communicate with other people who are just nearby is invaluable in the Dark Zone, and I think that it'll definitely help you guys out. Now that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed and found these tips helpful. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating or sharing this video. Now if you enjoyed this content and want to see more Division content from me, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.